The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
At the toy fair, all these child toys launched, all sort of various things. And one of them was a Hasbro animatronic doll, basically, that was on sale for $60.
The Baby Yoda, yeah.
Right. It's already, the pre-orders were sold out within a day.
Yeah.
Within a day. It was basically like if you weren't online the second that link was posted, you're not getting one.
Yeah, now you gotta go to eBay for $300.
And they're not coming out until December 2020.
I can't. I can't. Now Baby Yoda's like everywhere. Now they're just flooding the market with this stuff. So
yeah, there'll be Baby Yoda fatigue by the time.
I'm already fatigued now. It's like, all right, let's move on. I do want to touch on. Are we like officially in here? Are we?
Yes.
Because last week when we talked about our bad movies, we never emphasized the fact that we have bonus content on our website.
Yes.
Which is the fact that the three of us each chose three additional bad movies that we love. We didn't get a chance to talk about them, but we did do write-ups. Yeah. And Christina compiled them and put them on our website.
Well, think of the wonderful Easter egg that somebody would discover just going to our website. It's like a gift for you if you took the trouble.
People have to go to the website.
Yeah.
So if you have never been to our website, it is tmiconfessionalspodcast.com. And we do have a blog section there. And there are 9 additional bad movies that we are recommending. And there's a good chance at some point we'll probably talk about that.
Yeah, we don't get enough grandstanding talking on the show.
Correct.
So we also have to just deluge you with written content as well.
And apparently Jim was bloviating big time there because
I was.
You were a 4-page soliloquy.
I had in my, I was like a conductor standing in front of my computer writing this.
It's like, dum, dum, dum. Yes.
It was so funny because I was like, just like a paragraph write-up, from you, which is what I asked you guys for.
I didn't get. Well, I went off on
like
Legend
I wrote
of
like a
Creek.
recap and
right,
and then I did like just like a paragraph after that, and then I'm looking at your stuff like.
But that's the reason I do this show. Ask me to write something about one of the last movies that we saw in the theater, then you would get a paragraph.
Right.
But something that means something to me, then you're going to get every detail that I can throw in there.
That's right. You can't contain yourself. So I want to talk about that, and the other thing. So this is like business up front. Because the other thing is that we now have official merchandise. And I received my T-shirts yesterday as well. For $13, you can't pass it up. So if you go to tpublic.com/user movie nerd, or you can just search TMI Confessionals on TeePublic. We have 7 designs right now. There's a 35% off sale. Jump on it, order T-shirts, laptop covers. I don't know. You got phone cases. You got all kinds of crazy things going on there. But
yeah, you listen to us. You love us. Wear us with pride.
Yeah.
Spread the news.
I got some magnets. I picked up some magnets, little 4-inch magnets of the cartoon versions of ourselves.
And I think we've already had some sales, have we not?
We have had sales. So anybody who actually purchased, thank you.
Let us know. Write us an email. Take that extra step.
Take a picture. Hashtag it Movie Nerd. Tag us on Instagram, Facebook.
Our email is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
We're talking to you, Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon is blowing up. Unless it's one person that really loves us and trying to build our ego by listening to us 100 times over.
We'll put them on the payroll. We'll send you a shirt, dude. So that was really my business news up front. I wanted to get to.
The news started happening before we even started the show. So should we get into it? Do we have anything else?
I don't have anything else unless you guys do. I got nothing this week.
I got nothing.
Call of the Wild's actually doing pretty good.
Is it really?
Apparently, we're the only ones that were really poo-pooing it.
Birds of Prey suffers, but yet Scooby-Doo with Harrison Ford is
already knocked off Sonic. People are hungry for their animatronic dogs.
I was astonished at the Sonic numbers when I saw the
Everyone who I know has seen Sonic loved it. Now, again, my son is 17, so he grew up, and I want to share this story with you, which is the fact that he came home probably first or second grade, and he was so into Sonic, he came to his parents and he said, "Can I change my name to Sonic, but like officially?" "Yeah, sure, go ahead." Anywhere he went, like all he wanted to eat was chili dogs. He would sign his homework Sonic. None of his friends would give in to this, but his teachers would actually call him Sonic. They tolerated it. And it lasts like 2 weeks, and now he's embarrassed by the story. But he went with his friends, and they absolutely adored it. They thought it was great. And you got to sit through the end credits, because I guess there's a little teaser.
I fell asleep for about half an hour, I think, during Sonic.
James Marsden did that to you?
I just do that. It can be a great movie. I'm fighting sleep, sitting inside a theater. But it was entertaining. I didn't love it, but I have no history with Sonic. I was not a video game kid when I was growing up.
No, me either.
Growing up, I was in my 20s.
That's actually the larger market they're hitting right now.
Video games was Atari. Things went left or right.
There you go.
Breakout,
up and
right?
down.
That was great. Breakout. That got intense.
I had the little handheld Space Invaders game that I just took everywhere with me. I wish I still had it. All right.
Can we get into this?
Let's get into it.
This is our anime episode. This is big for us.
I feel very animated right now.
This is thanks to Christina, because eventually we would have come around to this, but I'm shocked that we haven't as of yet, and we're more than 100 episodes in. And
we definitely would have at least gotten into the Mononoke and some of the Spirited Away and Miyazaki stuff. But Summer Wars, never even heard of it, but thank you very much.
No, neither have I.
You're welcome.
Yes, that was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah. Summer Wars, make me feel fine. Covering anime for the first time.
You planned that, didn't you?
Of course
I did.
You made fun of me friggin' writing my own teleprompter last week.
Jim's been working on that jingle all week.
So who wants to take the lead on this one?
Okay, so I will.
I was hoping that Christina, you would jump in feet first with this one. Yes.
So just sort of a quick setup. The film starts with a hidden tribe called the Emishi, and their settlement is attacked by a giant boar that's turned into a demon.
Which is epic, by the way. That opening sequence is pretty intense.
And a prince of the tribe, Ashitaka, is injured defending the village from the giant boar. It turns out that the boar was maddened by the pain of an iron ball embedded in its flesh. And he puts a curse on Ashitaka. It comes out in the form of a mark on his arm.
And let me point out that it's very Hedorah smog monster-esque what he does to his victims. It's almost like a living mud kind of a thing crawling up his arm. It was very cool, and I really
like oil worms.
Yeah. And because this curse is on his arm, Ashitaka has to leave his tribe to go and try to have the curse removed if he can. Because the tribe is hidden, it means that basically he's leaving his home and his family forever.
Yeah, they basically said, "Hey, go
they
out
tell
and
him
go,
he can't come back, right?
Right, but you're dead to us." It's
like, yeah, go get yourself healed, but never come back.
Right, you're not gonna live anyways, but you're dead to us. Once you walk out, we're giving away your apartment.
I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Emishi were a real tribe.
No.
Yes. This is. Yeah, I read this is all based on reality, historical reality. Yeah.
Well,
demon boars.
Yeah, demon boars.
Not so much the demons,
yes.
Yeah. But the Emishi were like an ancient ethnic group, but I think Miyazaki is speculating that pockets of the tribe were, kind of hidden away. So Ashitaka leaving, he can't come back because he'd basically be endangering the remainder of the tribe.
Right, because a movie that my wife absolutely loves is called Last of the Dogmen, with Tom Berenger. Came out in 90, 95 maybe. And it's the same thing, which is this indigenous Native American Indian pocket that somehow survived the mass slaughter and lived autonomously within the woods of Utah or whatever. I don't know where they were, oblivious to the rest of the world. So kind of the same thing, I guess.
I was going to say, though, the whole thing with him cutting his hair in samurai culture, if you voluntarily cut off your top knot, you were giving up your status. You were dropping to a significantly lower status in society. This was partially because samurai were not allowed to work like a job. They had
Their
to
job
be
was
samurai.
to be a warrior. Right.
Yeah. So if they decided they didn't want to be a warrior anymore, that they wanted to go be a farmer, they had to cut off their top knot so people would know they were no longer samurai. And then their social status would drop significantly. There's a film called Harakiri. In the film, the main character shames 3 other samurai, not by killing them, but by cutting off their top knots.
Oh.
Yeah. So I guess I bring this up because in Princess Mononoke, probably to an American audience, it seems like not a big deal. Like he cuts his hair off and
right.
he leaves. But it's
to us, it's like, oh, it's just one more way that he's kind of hiding who and what he is.
Right. And let me point out that, in today's society, anybody I see with a man bun, I would like to cut that off. Very much so.
What about Gene Simmons? He's always had a man bun.
That usually denotes that you're a big D-bag, by the way, in today's society.
Wow.
But not so much in the Warring States period.
Right.
No. Yeah. That guy's got a sword, dude. And on that note, good night, kids.
Yeah, really.
Sorry to offend anybody with a man bun that's listening.
How dare you?
Jim just outraged everybody in Portland.
Oh, no!
Yeah.
Alienated all of our Oregon listeners.
Nice.
So anyway, Ashitaka leaves. And he's on his way to try to find the source of the iron ball that was embedded in this.
And this is the part where the arm really comes to the fore. It's like Bruce Campbell with his possessed arm.
Yeah,
Evil
yeah,
Dead 2.
basically. Yeah, you can't control it.
Yeah, because he comes upon a battle like where samurai are terrorizing peasants. I say battle loosely because basically the peasants had no way to defend themselves.
No, they were out of luck there.
Ashitaka, I think, is gonna like fire a warning arrow, but the arrow starts taking off limbs. It's almost like he's like imbued with this super strength.
The arrow knows exactly where to go to decapitate someone in just one shot, which is pretty impressive.
Well, the fact that he disarmed that guy, literally. One shot, both arms. Yeah, I showed my daughter this probably around 12 or 13 years old. And that scene right up front was like, oh, maybe we should be watching this.
Maybe I should have rethought this.
Yeah, but then again, I said, nah, we're in now. No, I'd seen it before because obviously this came out, 97?
I don't think it's the case for you, Jeff, but I think a lot of people just think, oh, well, it's an animated film, so it's for kids. And
well, I know better.
Yeah.
But I think, obviously in Japan, it's different. Like they see animation as just another way to tell a story.
Yeah, it's another form. It's you're right. That's the one thing here. Cartoons have a huge stigma about them. I've brought this story up before, which I have a friend who's a huge Spider-Man fan, but he hates cartoons. And he's like, and I'm like talking about Into the Spider-Verse, and he's like, I'm not watching that. I'm like, dude, you're just dismissing one of the greatest movies ever because it's animated. It's such a knee-jerk reaction. I will say, and you guys will probably be appalled by this, I did watch the English dub version, just because I'm sure that...
Oh, no, I did as well.
Oh, did you?
Something that you said on a previous episode where with animated movies, even if they are a foreign movie, you watch with the dub because you're missing too much of the animation if you're reading the subtitles. And I found that with Summer Wars. That Japanese dialogue is so rat-a-tat, and you're reading to keep up. Because, the subtitles are there, then they're gone. They're there, then they're gone. I wasn't watching the visuals.
The movie,
So I watched Summer Wars with the subtitles, Japanese language track. And I didn't even realize the all-star cast that was voicing Mononoke.
Yeah, I'm not a big, I hate it when they stunt cast, but, I think by and large, Neil Gaiman actually wrote the English adaptation of this.
No, he didn't.
He didn't? What?
No. That's
why is he all over
this is an urban myth.
He's on the DVD.
Yes, he is. So this is what happened. Neil Gaiman does not speak Japanese. He did not translate the script. He was given a translated script and he was asked to tweak it by Harvey Weinstein, who was the head of Miramax at the time. he was basically asked to make some of the Japanese cultural references more understandable for an American audience.
Okay.
So he didn't write the script. The screenplay is written by Hayao Miyazaki. He didn't translate it. He was given a translated version. And I think basically they were using his, sort of his comic cred at the time.
Now I feel like
film.
I was used. Now I feel like I feel that I've been duped.
But
because you're right, he does have comic cred.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to throw someone out there.
Initially, Weinstein was going to ask Quentin Tarantino to do these tweets.
Oh my, there'd be a lot more F-bombs, that's for sure. It would have. What do you have? 2 movies under his belt at the most by then? 99. Tarantino.
But he has a very specific way of writing dialogue and writing movies. It would have been a Tarantino.
Yeah, no, it would have been a different movie, right? And back to Jim's point, by watching the English translated, there's the background and the artwork in this is so lush and so deep. It's beautiful. And so you want to get caught up in that, and the soundtrack as well. But yeah, like I said, I watched this with my daughter, so I did watch the subtitle, and that's the version I do know. And I thought they did, by and large, did a decent job.
This score is my favorite of all the Miyazaki films.
Beautiful, yeah.
The Legend of Ashitaka, which is the main theme, is one of my favorite pieces of music of all time, from anything, anywhere.
Okay.
Interestingly, the film was not supposed to be called Princess Mononoke. Miyazaki wanted it to be called The Legend of Ashitaka.
Well, so let's talk about that, because there is no character in here named Princess Mononoke.
I'm learning Japanese. I am not fluent. I basically
Are you turning
have
Japanese?
I am not.
Turning Japanese?
That is about something else. I know some conversational Japanese, and I know a few words. And it's actually getting to a point now where when I watch a film in Japanese, though, I feel like I'm picking up on more subtleties that you don't get in the translation, just because I'm learning. So a Mononoke is a spirit, okay? Mm-hmm. It can be a vengeful spirit, it can be a living spirit, it can be a dead spirit, it can be a spirit that takes over someone's body, or one of the most common translations is changed being. So San, the character of San, is a Mononoke because she is a changed being. She is a human.
A human that is.
Believes she's a wolf.
Right. Now they see her, the citizens of Irontown and Lady Eboshi, they all see her as like a demon that rides with the wolves. So that's their perception of her. And that's how I took the title.
Yeah, wearing that mask doesn't help either. It's like, you want people to like you, take that thing off, dude. What are you doing?
Her name, San, means 3. She's the 3rd cub.
3rd. Oh, neat.
Which they never actually say the names of the other 2 cubs, but I have to assume they're each
1 and 2.
Yeah.
Thing 1 and thing 2.
They all have T-shirts that say 1, 2, and 3.
Right. Yeah, the visuals in this are phenomenal. The character designs of the tree spirits, and listen, let's go back. Pre-Baby Yoda, these tree spirits are just absolutely adorable.
Oh yeah, the Kodama.
The little jiggly heads and
on one of the bonus features, I'm sure you guys probably saw this, but Gillian Anderson was saying that she got a little keychain, and she had to fight it with her young daughter to see who would get the keychain.
Of course, my favorite is Yaku, the red stag. I think he had more personality than half the other characters. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I like Lady Eboshi. I think she was a very three-dimensional character. I think in this
consumerism,
there's no
at its
good,
best
there's
and
no
worst,
bad.
Right?
The characters have both sides. And while she was decimating the forest, she was also establishing Irontown for all these outcasts, lepers. A very noble cause, but there's, very conflicted emotions about these characters I had.
Well, I think that's the thing, right? So Eboshi, she only sees the side of the humans, right? She's full of compassion for other human beings, the brothel girls whose contracts she buys, right?
Yep.
The lepers that she saves. She's protecting the town from a samurai lord who wants to come in and take the profits for himself, but she only sees the human perspective, right? So she sees the forest and the mountain as something that she can plunder,
right? Because
it's all to the benefit of humans who are in need. And San only sees the pain of the forest, because she doesn't see the pain of humans and what they might need. But Ashitaka sees both sides. and because he's the only character who lives equally with nature. One of the ways you can see that is because like he and Yakul, they eat the same food.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay.
So like he sees Yakul as an equal to him. He has the same value as a human. So Ashtaka sympathizes with the humans in Irontown, but he also sympathizes with the forest.
Yes.
And because he's the only character who's sort of fighting down like the curse mark, right? The vengeance of the curse mark. He's physically trying to suppress pain and hatred that's not his own. And what he wants is for the people and for the forest to see that they can have a difference of opinion, but they don't need to kill each other over it.
Right.
There's one great scene where he asks to work the bellows along with the women, and he meets the lepers as well as Eboshi is showing him around Irontown. Like you were saying, he sees both sides. He sees her compassion for these people. And he's, like you said, he's got that curse in him. So he is feeling the rage that the boar did, that's because he's contracted it himself.
I thought it's interesting, the forest spirit, like when he steps and all the growth that grows up around his feet. Do you remember when we talked about Legend? That was Ridley Scott's idea originally for the unicorns. Mm-hmm. Whenever they stepped, like all this brand new growth, and it never came to it. And this Legend came out 85, so he was kind of ahead of the curve on that one a little bit.
All the characters, all the spirit characters come from like ancient Japanese legends. Like the idea of the Shishigami, the forest spirit, it heals and it takes away life. That's the other thing. It's so gorgeous when he's stepping and you see all the stuff growing, but then it dies a second later, right?
After he walks away, right? The New York Post called this the Star Wars of animated features, and I don't think it's quite
Star Wars.
You can't. The Star Wars of animated features.
That's a misrepresentation.
Yeah,
right.
It's really strange.
And that's the slapped right across the front of the DVD. So they were trying to get that market, but listen, it's Miyazaki's always been referred to as the Japanese Walt Disney, but this guy like hand drew or corrected over what was it, like something like 80,000 of these animated cells himself. So he's not like Disney in the sense that Disney comes up with an idea and then he just employs his guys to go out and draw this thing and he oversees them. This guy's like down in the trenches.
He's very suspicious of CGI. So most of the movie, I think 110,000 cells are hand-drawn.
Yeah.
Which is amazing when you think about, especially the scenes in the forest. Like the forest is like, it's mossy and textured. Like it has all these, it's like these depth.
Later, Disney, when they shot Tarzan, and by then they were doing CG backgrounds or whatever, and they refer to like that's what they call deep canvas, which was these elaborate, detailed. And again, even in Tarzan, you see it with the mossy and the trees and the textures. But these guys are doing this with matte paintings, and they're doing it with background art, and it's just it's so impressive. Even on a DVD, I don't have this on a Blu-ray, and I've never seen it on the big screen, but it just. There's a reason it was like the number one. It was the highest grossing movie in Japan. It beat out E.T. until Titanic came along. But it really is something to behold. It is a gorgeous example of just, regardless whether it's Japanese or American, it's hand-drawn 2D animation that we've kind of lost. Although if you saw Klaus on Netflix, it's very impressive. And that's a return to the old school 2D.
Hey, nominated for Best Feature, Best Animated Feature.
And they kept it under wraps that was even a 2D movie. They just kind of screened it, and people were like, how'd you do this in 3D? And they're like, haha, it's not.
It's like, we drew it.
Exactly, right. So it's...
Ashitaka doesn't get drawn up into this, man versus nature thing until he really gets to Irontown. Before that, he's just looking for a cure for himself, and he's told that he has to find the forest spirit by the monk, Chikubo, who played strangely in the English version by Billy Bob Thornton. So
he was very underplayed by Billy Bob Thornton.
Yes,
he could have been a much more.
So then he finds out that once he gets to Irontown, that Lady Eboshi wants to kill the forest spirit because she thinks that in doing so, that these like the wolf gods and the boar gods will stop attacking them and they'll just become animals without that forest spirit to guide them, and then she can build up her community for human outcasts. So we get Ashitaki's in the middle of that. once he gets
Well,
to Irontown.
Jikobo has this letter from the emperor, right? That basically like forgives them for killing the forest spirit.
Yes,
Because he wants immortality, right?
Right, because he so basically they're gonna kill the Shishigami so that the emperor can have his head. And Jikobo is basically calling in a favor on Lady Eboshi because he's like, you needed gunmen to protect you from Lord Asano, and I sent them to you, right? So
And Asano
she
is the head of the samurai, the feudal lord that's been
right,
attacking Irontown.
right. And he was like, well, I helped you out, so now I need you to help me out. You know, he's basically using her so that he won't be held responsible if there's a total disaster. He can be like, well, she was the one who actually shot the Shishigami, not me, you know.
Right, and he's kind of holding back, letting them do his dirty work towards, and as long as he makes off with a head at the end.
Yeah, a true manager, supervisor.
Yeah, it's actually kind of weird that he's called the monk because he's really not very monk.
Yeah, he didn't give me that impression. Yeah, I didn't get the impression that he was very
I think he stole that
monkish.
business card.
Yeah. But can we also mention that in the English dub, the great Keith David is the boar?
Okoto, the old boar.
The old boar.
The white one.
Who himself gets corrupted at the end and brings San along for the ride. That is a powerful sequence. They've finally tracked down the forest spirit. And it's the scene where they actually managed to behead it is just horrific to behold.
Yeah, no, agreed. There was 3/4 of this where I just watched and didn't take any notes because I just got sucked into it again.
Oh, I didn't take notes at all. And this is the first time I've seen this movie.
Is it really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I've seen Spirited Away, but I've never seen this. And I was just enamored.
It is, yeah.
I thought it was wonderful.
You can't
really
help but
did.
be impressed with the whole thing.
I was swept away by it.
Yeah. You know, you brought up Weinstein, and when Miramax acquired this, the first thing you wanted to do was have them cut it down.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because it is over a 2-hour movie. And there's a point where you're like, all right, this is going on just a little too long. But like you said, once they get into the end game, it's pretty impressive. But I guess Miyazaki actually got up, walked out of the meeting, and a couple days later mailed Weinstein a katana blade that actually had no cuts etched into the blade.
I think it was his producer, actually.
Oh, was it? Well,
yeah.
Right. But regardless, he got his point across.
Did you know what happened to Miyazaki over this movie was the same thing that ended up happening to Bong Joon-ho over Snowpiercer. So Weinstein wanted to make cuts. Miyazaki said no cuts. So Weinstein punished Miyazaki by limiting the film's release. And so it didn't have an opportunity to reach a wide audience the way it probably should have at the time. And the same thing happened with Bong Joon-ho and Snowpiercer. Weinstein was trying to like chop up the film, and Bong Joon-ho was like, if you cut this, it like the film's not going to make sense. And he ended up getting like Tilda Swinton and John Hurt sort of came into the fold and said, you know, you can't cut this movie. And Weinstein finally said fine, and in punishment he gave Snowpiercer a limited release. Like Bong Joon-ho could have been a massive star in the U.S.
It's so simple. But as a producer or as a studio that says we want this movie, but we're going to make changes to it. It's like I don't get it.
Yeah, it's like holding a grudge against a person and punishing them by limiting this movie that you're releasing. It just makes no sense.
It's like, yeah, well, we see his decisions are not the best anyways, without getting too much into it.
The interesting thing at the end, San and Ashitaka fight to return the Shishigami's head to him because he's basically destroying the land, because he's walking around headless. And he's like everything that comes into his path is dying. So they return his head to him, but then his last act is to heal everything.
Right.
When he finally falls down and disappears, like the land is green again. And I don't know if you notice, even the lepers are healed. Ashitaka's curse is healed. Everything's
Yes,
healed.
right, yeah.
Basically, I think, saying that that humans can contribute, right? Humans can be a part of the environment. But Irontown has been completely wiped out.
Eboshi is going to rebuild Irontown at the end. Her arm is gone, but she's very much alive at the end of the movie, and she is going to rebuild Irontown as a place for outcasts.
That's a great scene too, when Moro, the wolf god, she comes and she bites Eboshi's arm off, like her final act before she dies.
And take that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a great scene earlier on when Ashitaka is almost mauled by one of the wolves. And, San says, stop,
right?
and she grabs him by the head and is shaking him. She's like, stop. And yeah, if you're a shipper, you're not going to like the end of this movie. Because if you want San and Ashitaka to get together, it cannot be.
Yeah.
It cannot be.
The wolf spirit, the Okami, they're spirit messengers, and they're also known as protectors. So their role in the forest is actually really specific.
So that would be San has to continue that role. Right,
because now Moro is dead, and she has to continue to try to protect the forest. And also, the idea of them being spirit messengers, so that they're a go-between between the different spirits.
Right. So, Christina, what is your specific history with this movie? Do you remember when the first time you saw it was?
Yeah, I saw it in theater.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where did it play? Did it play? Were you
Albany.
in Albany at that time? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I went to see it because I was working in a comic book store at the time.
Ah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was a lot of talk about the movie, because obviously in the comic store we also sold anime, and I watched anime at the time. There was not as much available. We always talk about this now, like how there's so much imported content, it's available now. And at the time we were desperate just to get one videotape with 2 episodes of Ranma 1/2 on it. We'd be like, we're watching
It was a
anime.
niche market. It was such a niche market then, right?
But yeah, I saw it in the theater and I loved it. And after that, I saw Spirited Away when it came out, because I was a fan of Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
And then as the film started to become available in the US, I just started buying them up, because I was a huge fan of Miyazaki, but also just because, my husband and I both watched as much anime as we could get a hold of, and, we were just desperate for anything.
Now, Jeff, how about you? When was the first time you saw it?
Probably when it came out on DVD.
Yeah.
At the time I was working for myself at home, and I would while my hours away listening to audio commentary, mostly of movies that, I had seen multiple times, but, because it was animated. And it just, I don't remember if I saw the trailer for it. I did not see it in the theater, but it was just something that really kind of spoke to me. And, and again, it's kind of like your gateway drug to, all things Miyazaki and Spirited Away. We'll definitely get into that as well. But I find it interesting that this was your first going at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why it's eluded me all this time, because I have watched anime, but I've never seen this.
I think the first full length, not a TV show anime that I saw was actually Fist of the North Star. I don't know if you guys know Fist of the North Star.
Yep.
Yeah. There was a period of time where the only Japanese animated features you could see here that were available were Akira, Ghost in the Shell,
yeah.
Fist of the North Star. That was about, there really wasn't a lot that was available here. Fist of the North Star is, Jim, if you've never seen it, you actually probably would love this movie. It's one of the goriest movies I've ever seen. It's insanely gory. It has some really has a very old-fashioned look. If you think of the space battleship Yamato era of anime,
which was probably,
that's what it looks like.
For us, it probably was, Battle of the Planets, which was Gatchaman.
So this is called Fist of the North Star?
Yeah.
Fist of the North Star. Yeah.
Okay.
Go look it up.
I will.
Yeah. Big giant biceps. And
Are we ready to give buckets to Princess Mononoke? Okay.
Yeah.
What do we want?
You guys want to go first, or?
Oh, I did. I give it a solid 4.25. Again, it's something that I enjoy immensely. I think it's beautiful to look at.
Yeah, I would go 4.
Yeah.
I loved it, and I can't wait to watch Spirited Away
So
again.
glad.
So
This is a 4.5 for me, only because it's not my favorite Miyazaki film.
well, you've got to,
So
you
my
know, you
favorite
can't just arbitrarily say 5 buckets for everything, right? Because that's the same reason when we did Night of the Living Dead that I'm like, well, okay, I want to give this 5 buckets, but I actually like Dawn of the Dead a little bit more. So I can't give them both 5 buckets. So I went as far as I could, you know, shy of 5. So I understand.
Yeah, because Howl's Moving Castle is actually my favorite Miyazaki film. So I can't give Princess Mononoke 5 solely because I like Howl's Moving Castle better. This is actually in my household, like the correct order of Miyazaki films is actually a big subject of debate.
That's funny.
Because Howl's is my favorite, Princess Mononoke is my son's favorite, and my husband's favorite is Spirited Away.
So,
and I think for all
three
of us,
right there.
My Neighbor Totoro is in the top 3 for all 3 of us, but like always in different places.
It's like when we ranked our Marvel picks. Family squabbles.
Yeah, some of the visuals in this were just amazing. I loved especially in the beginning when the angry boar god is coming and he's corrupted and all these worms are coming off of him and you can't see
phenomenal.
what it is.
Yep.
It's just this blob running through the forest with eyes. It was very striking. The whole thing was. Things like that just stood out. So yeah, loved it. Thank you for choosing this, and I'm glad I watched it.
Yes, and if you've never seen it, go watch it. Go find it.
Obviously, yeah. Please. So I think we're ready to move on, but not before we go to the concession stand. So we're going to take a break, and we'll come right back with Summer Wars.
Satisfy the kiddies with a bag of crisp, crunchy popcorn. And don't forget to get an extra bag or 2 to take to the car to munch on during the show. You will also want to take a supply of ice-cold soft drinks or delicious, flavorful coffee to keep you refreshed throughout the next show. Make the evening complete by getting a tasty treat for yourself and every member of your party. Make your visit to our theater a pleasant occasion to be remembered. We'll be richly rewarded with the thought that we have pleased you.
Okay, we're back.
Was our commercial all on Japanese?
No, I couldn't find one.
You couldn't find one? It didn't matter. Even you just find anything. No one would know if it was for a movie or
This is Summer Wars, and this is a 5 bucket episode.
For me.
Well, it's for all of us. You know, if it's 5 bucket for, you know, this is like the 3 Musketeers here. So it's 5 bucket for one, it's 5 bucket for all.
And I had never seen this.
Obviously. No,
I don't
you know, obviously, I've never seen Princess Mononoke. I've never seen Summer Wars.
I've never even heard of this, to be honest with you. And I was surprised my library had it. I immediately shared it with my daughter, who said, I'm not aware of that, but the animation looks phenomenal.
And it is.
It is.
The animation is phenomenal.
It's unique. It sets up, and you think you're getting one thing, and then you kind of get something else. And you're like, what the hell is going on here? And it slowly, it slowly won me over. And by the end,
there's so much going on here. It's a merging of like a big chill, like family drama, and like a war games, you know, tech thriller. And I like the fact, talking about the animation, how some of these characters have their own animated style. Like the one, I think, is one of the uncles who is the police officer, has this goofy, like over the top
Shoto.
Speed racer kind of a, you know, kind of a style. So it was very interesting to look at. I love visually. It was always, there was something new being given to you.
I just want to say before we get into this movie, so this is directed by Mamoru Hosoda. And if you guys aren't familiar with his work, especially if you like Miyazaki, please go and look up his other films. Wolf Children,
you
which
mentioned
is
that last week, Wolf Children, yeah.
Amazing. The Boy and the Beast, which is like an isekai type story similar to Spirit Away, where a boy ends up in a world full of demons. His most recent film is Mirai, which is a kind of time traveling story, which is amazingly beautiful.
Kind of?
It's Mirai's actually, it's very, very moving. Yeah, it's about a little boy who suddenly gets a little sister, and he doesn't really want her because she's taking all of his parents' attention away.
Well, that's the way it
And then
always
his
goes,
little
right?
sister comes to visit him from the future.
Oh my.
Oh.
Her
It says,
older
leave me
self.
alone, dude. One day I'm going to save your ass.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. He's I think come out with some of the most interesting. Every one of his films is different, really innovative stuff. Like if you're a fan of Miyazaki, I think you'll be a fan of Hosada. So please go and look up his other movies. Yes, so roughly in a near future, there's this place that's known as Oz. It's a virtual world where many, many real world things are tied into it. So like shopping, sports, the way you would think of, sort of the internet, but also like banking, businesses, government agencies, communication systems.
It's like social networking to the next level.
Yeah, I kind of equated it to the Oasis and Ready Player One.
Yeah, what came
for
first?
The sense,
what came
this
first?
Came out in 2009, so definitely before Ready Player One. I mean, Ready Player One was based on a book, though.
But that's what I was getting at,
right? When the film came out. But yeah, and they all real world people have like these avatars that inhabit. So that's where you get the different art styles as well, where you get almost like these characters are coming directly from different type of video games, have a different look and feel. All interacting with each other. So right up front, you're given this crazy, energetic, animated mishmash of all this stuff going on, and you're just you're completely overwhelmed. You're like, this is crazy. You got space whales going on, and it's like
John and Yoko, right?
John and Yoko, yeah.
These are the two, like the overseers of Oz, were these giant whales that kind of float through.
I bow before the space whales.
The interesting thing is that like your avatar basically has the same real world privileges as like your real self would. So like a representative of a government agency, their avatar has the same power in Oz that it would have in the real world. And this is important ultimately for the outcome of the film, and it's supposed to be, right? It's totally okay that all these things are being run in this virtual world and we don't ever have to worry about somebody breaking in and, taking advantage of this. So this is sort of the basic setup, that's going on in the background is Oz. Then there's a personal story. So there's Kenji, who actually is like a part-time worker for Oz, who does sort of administrative things.
Like maintenance.
But he's a kid. He's in high school.
Yeah, he's in high school. But he's also a math genius, which is, again, important to the outcome of the story. There's so many layers in this movie, which is one of the reasons why I love it, why I'm so enthusiastic about it, because there's all of these layers of information that you're getting, and you think it's irrelevant, but literally nothing is irrelevant.
This is again one of those movies when you get to the end, you kind of like you see all the pieces that fell into place, right? And if you went back and you rewatched it again, you're now picking up on all this stuff. Everything that lays into what needs to happen is already put there in front of you. If nothing is kind of pulled out of the ether at the last second.
Yeah. Kenji is asked by an upperclassman in the school, Natsuki Junichi.
And let's just point out that Kenji does not have a lot of experience with girls. So this also ties into what his actions are, later on in the movie.
Right. So Natsuki asks him to basically be hired for the weekend, and she doesn't tell him why. She says, I need you to come to my family's place for the weekend. I want you to do a job for me. He's kind of like, okay.
This is a girl talking to him, right? So he's going to say yes to anything she asks.
I don't know. I mean, they're on that train ride for a while. She could have at least given him a heads up what's going to happen. Wait until she's at the house. Oh, yeah, by the way, you're supposed to be my fiance. Go. It's like, what?
Yeah, he's stuck on the train, right? He can't back out.
Right. That's when you start laying the groundwork there, young lady.
So Natsuki is going to her family's house for her grandmother's birthday celebration. Is going to be like a weekend long thing. And all the members of the extended family are coming to this. And the family is enormous.
Right.
Actually, I shouldn't even say extended family. This is actually their more or less nuclear family. This doesn't even count like sort of, a bunch of random cousins here or there. There's, like 30, 40 odd people who are showing up at this house. So Natsuki is taking Kenji and she's basically dropping him into this huge family and telling him to act like her fiance. And she says, please say that you have studied abroad.
Yeah.
And that you're going to Tokyo University. And he's like, what? Like,
Almost like shades of Parasite creeping in here as well. Now, and the grandmother, just to make matters worse for Kenji, she's like the Yoda of this family. She's turning 90, and she is like a wizened woman. And so she can see through most facades pretty easily.
Right. She's like clearly the matriarch, right? Everything, like all family direction comes from her. So while they're having this family party, Wabsuke, who's like the black sheep of the family.
Is he adopted? Did I pick that up at some point? Or...
Okay, so the grandmother, the matriarch, her husband had an affair. And Wabsuke.
He's he's illegitimate. That's right. That's right.
And she adopted him as her own, which just tells you how freaking awesome she is. And treated him like a legitimate member of the family. And he repaid her by stealing a bunch of money and running away to the U.S.
Right. This is kind of like Chris Evans' character in Knives Out. I thought it was very similar. It was kind of a similar setup to that movie.
Right. So Wabsuke shows up, and Natsuki is basically the only one who's happy to see him because she's always had a little crush on
her beloved uncle, right? Yeah.
Uncle.
Right. And everyone else is like, what are you doing here? Get out. He stays. And then Kenji sort of left drifting because like he's supposed to be there as Natsuki's fiance, but now all of her attention is on her uncle. And then overnight, in the middle of the night, Kenji gets an email asking him to solve a math problem, which he does because it's like a compulsion for him.
Which is just second nature, right?
Kicking in.
It's like me getting a trivia question. Like, well, I have to answer this. Whoever it is.
Right. So he answers the question, and he solves the math problem, and then he gets almost like a Joker response. Like it looks like a present, and then it opens and it explodes. He's kind of like, okay, I don't know what that was. And then he goes to sleep. And then the next morning he wakes up and finds out that the math problem that he solved was like the security code for Oz. The person who sent him the email took his avatar and now controls his avatar and is now like disrupting all of these things within Oz.
As him, as Ken.
As him, right. Yeah. So now he's being blamed. Like there's pictures of him on TV.
Right. Like, the kids are going nuts. They're like, oh, it's you. Victim of identity fraud.
He's like destroying the economy of the world as
he's destroying the
everybody's like, why would he do such a thing? Why?
Right. They're like they think he was like a kid who pulled a prank, and they're like, but he's gonna get arrested because this is actually a serious thing. Literally everything in society depends on Oz. A lot of things start getting disrupted immediately. Traffic signals, emergency services,
power.
Power, like all this stuff starts getting disrupted. Like a bunch of things start unfolding very quickly, which is that the family finds out that Kenji isn't who he said he was. They think that he's a criminal who...
Yeah, because they already found out he lied. So now all of a sudden they're like, oh, this dude is no good whatsoever.
Right. And then the Shoto tries to arrest him and take him to the station, but then they can't even get there because the traffic is so messed up because because of the traffic signals. And Kenji, with the help of his other friend who's also a maintenance worker for Oz, gets like a temporary avatar, figures out how to sort of shut down the worst of the problems. He also gets help from Cosma, who's a young member of the family who's famous in Oz for being like a street fighter, basically.
Yeah, the rabbit.
Yeah, she's got a really cool rabbit avatar in
King Cosma.
King Cosma.
Yeah, and we were actually at C2E2, which is the Chicago Comic-Con a few years ago, and I was on a panel, and while I'm on the panel, my son sends me a picture of himself posing with someone who had done a Cosma cosplay. It was so cool looking, and I was like, Like,
I gotta
because
go,
never got
folks.
to
I gotta
see this
go. I'll be right
person.
back.
Like, I need to go meet that person right now.
So the family is trapped in the house because of the traffic snarls and everything else. So
Right.
so Kenji is stuck there with the family. So he wants to fix this in
Right.
part to clear his own name.
Right. And then they do find out very quickly that actually it's an AI. It's not a single person. It's basically an AI that like is learning and sort of going crazy in the system. And that Wabasuke, the black sheep of the family, actually created this AI. And the grandmother completely loses her mind, attacks Wabasuke with a spear. Like, get out and never come back.
All the money that she gave him, he used to fund this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, Grandma made this. Grandma was the sugar mama.
But the recriminations of this AI taking over Oz has dire consequences on this family because it disrupts her heart monitor.
Right.
Right. One of the
'cause it
family
targets
members is
her.
a doctor. He has medical alerts coming to his phone so that if there's any change, he would be notified immediately.
Yep.
And yeah, because of the disruptions to Oz, overnight she dies. And he never gets an alert.
Yeah. The other thing we learned too around that time, which is that Kenji wasn't the cause of this. He was not the only one that was given the all of the math problem. He did solve it, but he didn't solve it as quick as somebody else.
Right. There are 55 users who broke the code.
Right.
So it ultimately, wasn't his responsibility.
So it kind of exonerated him a little bit, but he still feels obligated to try and fix it.
Right. And then in the meantime, like sort of in the background, again, like there's a lot of subtleties, there's a lot of things going on. So like there's this recurring story before the Oz story breaks. You keep seeing it play on the TV in the background about Arawashi, the satellite that was supposed to like break off and sort of, harmlessly enter the atmosphere, and it didn't separate when it was supposed to. And this seems like a random story in the background, but it actually becomes important to the climax of the story.
But even the baseball game that they're watching,
right?
Really, really, all of a sudden becomes like this catalyst for how this family kind of, all comes together as a team and decides that we're gonna beat this. So it is. It's
like the host on a much larger scale.
It is.
Yeah.
No,
but
it
you
is
quickly
because
become completely invested in this family dynamic, which is because again, like I said, up front, you're given this huge introduction to Oz, and you think this is where we're gonna go, and then it veers away from that, and it gets into this family element for a good 40 minutes, and you're just like, what are we doing here? And then it just comes full circle, and it ties it all back in. But then you're like, I'm invested in this family now more so than the Oz plot. It's crazy. It really is. I don't even know how to describe it, but it really it kind of takes you by surprise.
Like one of the things I love is what you're talking about, how everything that sort of happens, it's happening on the macro level, like worldwide, is happening in the family on a micro level, and because the family's so huge, everybody seems to have a profession that can end up being helpful to the ultimate outcome.
Yeah, because they all got their own unique personality and things that they're going to bring to the table.
Suddenly, one of them is able to get a supercomputer to help them fight the love machine.
Because he owns a computer store.
Yeah.
Right, and we're dumping a ship into the koi pond.
Right, because Monsuke owns a fishing boat, and then like Riichi is part of the defense force, so he brings one of the defense force trucks so that they can use it for power for the computer.
Right.
And obviously, like Kenji can solve the codes, and like Kazuma is going to try to fight the AI, in Oz to try to defeat it so that they can shut it down and it will stop being disrupted.
Yeah. And like you said, with the satellite, all of a sudden it's going to like crash within like a 2-hour window.
At one point, Love Machine,
which is
redirects that satellite to crash into their house.
Into the house,
right? Countdown to save themselves.
It realizes now that they're all after it. Right. So I don't think we even mentioned the fact the Love Machine is the name of the AI. Right. And the visual for this creature being AI is incredible. It is such a straight up, I don't even know how to describe it, but he's like this warrior, not samurai, but he's
my son says it looks like an evil Buddha.
An evil Buddha. I would go with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, like definitely like a super powerful kind of god is
Yeah,
what
he's
he looks
badass.
like.
And he's kind of taken possession of countless avatars, and that's giving him power.
Yeah, I think they
in
said he
Oz.
acquired like 400 million users, and then he just becomes almost like the infected boar at the beginning of Princess Mononoke, but on a
Right.
massive level, where
Yeah.
he's just comprised of billions of these little avatars. It's very impressive.
So the family scheme, you know, we're working through all these family issues, like during the mid portion of the movie,
Right.
and then the great grandmother dies, and she's they can't get her out of the house, so her body is still
there,
occupying the house, and to the point where the police officer uncle brings the ice that was meant for the supercomputer into her bedroom, so it cools her body, doesn't start to rot away.
Right, and that's such an important scene because Cosma has just defeated the Love Machine AI in Oz, and we've
trapped it. Yeah, we've trapped it.
And then the computer overheats, which allows the AI to escape because Cosma can no longer control the AI. And it's such a great scene. I love that scene actually when Cosma punches Shoto. He's so angry in that moment, you know. I had it defeated. And Cosma's taking it really personally because earlier, you know, the AI had beaten him in a fight, and King Cosma is King Cosma because he's like the undefeated fighter. So there's like this personal thing where he's invested in it. Like so many things happen then. Like Natsuki finds the letter from the grandmother talking about how it's so important that they all stay together and that they eat together, and that if Wabasuke comes back, they should welcome him, part of the family. And then Wabasuke turns around and comes home. And then suddenly the whole family, you know, decides that they have to work to stop the AI because Arawashi, the satellite that didn't separate, the AI is now taking control of it and it's pointing it at a nuclear reactor. And the family is like the only ones who seem to be in a position to do anything about Love Machine. The whole family decide that, you know, Kenji says, you know, we have to figure out a way to get the user accounts back from Love Machine so that it won't have as much power. And also because one of those user accounts can control the satellite and they just need to get that one back. So they decide that they're going to challenge the AI to Hanafuda, which is a card game that like basically everyone in the family plays.
And they were playing earlier in the movie.
I was going to say it was established earlier that they were playing this game with the grandmother. Right.
They all decide to take their avatars and go into Oz to fight the AI by playing Hanafuda. Koi Koi is the call that you make.
Almost like Go Fish, right? It's not the
game
is not like Go Fish,
really
but that's what it reminded me of.
Natsuki at one point, she's like, Koi Koi.
Yeah.
And you're right there with him. You're like cheering with him at this point. And the one thing which was that you found out his password was the grandmother's birthday, which was like a just heart-wrenching moment because he really kind of dismissed the old lady and he kind of gave her shit.
So that was a nice reveal for that character who you didn't really
like
that much up to that
point. The tough
point.
Exterior, right? Who just conveniently was the bad guy for about 20 minutes. And
well, it's like you find out that, you know, he was doing it all because he was trying to prove something to her, that he thought she would be proud of him.
Right.
You know, he was like, I made this thing. Aren't you proud of me? And she's like,
no.
Like,
Dude, you just destroyed the world. But I did it all myself, Grandma.
What ends up happening when they're playing Hanafuda is that Natsuki is trying to win back user accounts. Like that's basically what they're using to bet with. And at one point she loses and she doesn't have enough user accounts to go forward. And then all these people worldwide are sort of watching this conflict, start saying, take my account, take my account. So that like all these, and you see all these people everywhere who are like staring at their screens, you know, like super invested in the outcome.
Yeah,
and
it's like the whole galaxy showing up in Rise of Skywalker.
There you go. Yeah.
And then in the meantime, Wabasuke and Kenji are working to try to fix things in the background just in case Natsuki can't beat the Love Machine at the game. So ultimately, she does win, but he still retains two accounts. One of them is Kenji's. And the other one is clearly the account that controls the satellite.
Right.
Because it decides the AI has become human enough that it's so petty, it decides to focus the satellite on their house instead of a nuclear reactor. Like, I'm going to punish you personally.
By dropping this on you.
Yeah.
Right.
Have a nice day.
Right. And in the background, like Jeff said, one of the Janucci boys is playing in the high school, like the National High School Baseball Championships. And he's going through like this really intense struggle, like trying to win this baseball game, which is like, you know, reflects the struggle that the rest of the family is going through.
Which is not disrupted, by the way, by any of these.
Right.
Well, yeah, listen, a baseball game.
Yeah.
Not just America's pastime.
And then Kenji ultimately solves the code to get inside because he's the math whiz, and that has to come back too.
Yep.
He solves the code to get into Oz to divert the satellite so that it at least doesn't crash into the house, you know.
Still crashes, but it just
right.
crashes nearby rather than on the house.
Right, instead of killing them all.
Yeah.
And now we got some lovely hot springs over there.
But it's so great because, yeah, there's like all these layers and all these things kind of being interwoven in the movie, and like it all comes together at the end in just this like really beautiful way. And ultimately, like, you know, it's about the family, and it's about the family staying together.
Yeah, more so than anything, it's a family drama.
Yeah.
That just
like
happens to have this overreaching, world-destroying
Crisis.
arc going on at the same time, but it keeps it in that house, which is very interesting.
It surprised the hell out of me, man. I loved it.
I'm so glad you liked it because I just I
was,
love this film.
So this was the first time for Jeff and I. What was the first time you saw this, Christina?
I want to say, I mean, at least 5 years ago.
Right. Did it take you by surprise when you watched it for the first time?
Or
were you prepared?
Maybe not as much, because I think at that point, the first film of his that I had watched was actually Wolf Children, and I really loved Wolf Children. So I don't think I was as unprepared for the outcome, maybe as you guys were, because you know, I was already a little bit familiar with his work, and Wolf Children is another one of those movies that really surprises you, you know, where he does a lot of different things, not as many sort of layers as Summer Wars, but I'm just a big fan of his. I think he's just does something really kind of amazing and unique. And a lot of his films, like, they tend to come back to this root about like relationships between people, you know, even if they have all these other fantastic elements. Wolf Children is about a woman who marries a guy who turns out is a shapeshifter. He's a wolf. And then he dies, and she ends up having like these two wolf children, and you know, not knowing what to do with them. And it's set in contemporary Japan. This is not, you know, set in some ancient period. So it's like, what do you do with two kids who turn into wolves?
Where's
you know?
P.T. Barnum when you need him?
I ask myself that sometimes. So this is the first movie that you've chosen, anime movie that you've chosen. Could we say that this is your favorite anime movie?
It's so hard for me to say that, because it's like trying to say
your favorite live action movie.
Right. Like, what's your favorite Kurosawa film? Like, I don't know. Well, no, actually I do. It's Yojimbo. But but then it's like, you know, other things start crowding up very quickly. You're like, but I also like this, and I also like this. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard for me to say like one thing is my favorite, but it's definitely one of my favorites.
One of them.
Yeah.
It's official. It's a 5 bucket. So
there you go.
Sound those trumpets.
Nice.
Bring in the fanfare.
It's the first anime film that's been inducted into the 5 bucket list.
Well, this show is the first anime show that we've done. So, well, if you don't count Jack and the Beanstalk.
That is true.
That was anime.
Jack and the Beanstalk. You guys see Jack and the Beanstalk? Wait, when did you do that? I tried to go back and listen to
Oh my gosh, that was...
Shazam. That's what we did it with. Shazam.
Oh, Shazam.
And I didn't see Shazam, so I probably...
Oh, you're right. Oh, yeah,
didn't listen to that episode because of that.
Yep. Some just need a nagging house.
I was just waiting for any tenuous connection, and Shazam had a kid in it, so that's what I used.
Yeah, this was a bizarre. That was a bizarre.
But it's one of my favorite movies.
I hope that you guys are like open to doing more anime in the future, because I watch a lot of anime. Like a lot.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Jim, by the end of this, we'll all know Japanese. be going on tour.
So
So
glad
that-
you guys
Cool.
watched it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So that brings us into our confessional.
Confessionals.
Now the question is, what animated feature traumatized you the most as a child?
I almost added an addendum to this question, which is nobody's allowed to say Watership Down.
That's a given.
Because that's an automatic, that's a gimme. No, The Mouse and His Child. I don't know if you guys
The Mouse and His Child.
remember this animated film. It's based on a story by Russell Hoban, who actually co-wrote the Emmett Otter book. But this story is about two little mice, toy mice, a father and son, who are bound together. Their hands are bound together, and they're run by a wind-up key in their back. And all they want basically is autonomy. They don't want to be dependent on some person to come and wind them up so that they can exist. And they want to find a family and a place where they can be safe and together. And they sort of have a family-like relationship with some of the other toys in the shop where they are. But then one day they actually accidentally fall out a window into the trash. And they end up being enslaved by this mean rat who forces all these wind-up toys to work for him. And if they don't produce and do what he wants them to do, they're torn apart. Ultimately, there is a happy ending, but this is a really, as a kid, to see these toys getting ripped up, when they did something wrong, and the middle part of the movie, basically when they're just miserable and enslaved, is horrible. Horrible for a little kid.
Oh, I can't wait to review it.
Yeah. I don't know actually that you would be able to find it.
No.
Now, how did you see it? Yeah, how did you see it?
It was on it must have been on HBO or something, because my mom had a video.
It was recorded.
Gotcha.
She'd recorded it. Yeah, my mom used to just record anything that was animated.
There you go. It's cartoon. It's gotta be good.
And then we would watch it, and that was how I watched it. But it's not. I think for a while it was available on VHS, but it's not available on DVD or anything in the U.S.
The Mouse and His Child.
The Mouse and His Child. Yep, devastating. Completely devastating.
Oh my.
Well, I wanted to pick this, but it's not animated. It's not a movie, but it's a short. The Red Balloon. Could not watch as a kid. I saw it once. I'm like, I can't do this.
When
this
they
is too upsetting.
When they start pelting him with rocks.
Such a visceral portrayal of a kid getting bullied. It was devastating as a kid. That really traumatized me, and I would stay away from it. After I saw it once or twice, when it came on, it was one of these things that came on HBO in between the movies, because it was maybe about 15 minutes long. I remember seeing it in school,
that they actually would show this in school.
That it was used as filler between programs, and I would turn the channel and then go back to it because I could not watch it. And then there was also a kid's photo book that had stills. And it was in the library, and it was like a magnet. Even though I knew I didn't like it and I didn't want to look at it, I was always drawn to that book.
And the fact that he was red too, because it was queasy.
So there was that. That doesn't really count as an animated feature. But in terms of animated features, I would say Fantastic Planet. I was not prepared for that, and that was really the first portrayal of death. Fantastic Planet was very unsettling. And I forget what their names are, but the blue aliens had the humans as pets, and they would kill them indiscriminately and crush them, and it was it's like a French animated feature, and it's got very bizarre animation, and that itself was off-putting, but the themes were just too heady for me at the time. I'm going to give that as my answer.
I didn't really pick a movie per se, because I couldn't think of anything that I saw animated wise that left me traumatized, but there were certain scenes, and one of them, which was just the stupid abominable snowman, the Bumble in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I love it. I love him. But as a kid,
Yeah.
because they played him up as being so scary early on, and we saw his feet, and he was always behind the mountain in shadow, and he had the big giant teeth. But there was a scene. This is going to be so stupid. This right here just shows you. In the opening credits to Josie and the Pussycats, you had this montage of the song, and you always had like this little blips of bad guys. And there was this guy, I think it was Josie and the Pussycats in outer space, actually. And that came out 72, so I was probably like 5-6 years old watching this. And there's this guy, this bad guy, and he just has like these weird goggles. And I used to like he was the boogeyman to me at night when I was sleeping in my bed, and I couldn't sleep with my arms outside or my feet outside of the blanket because this guy was going to get me. And I looked it up online. I just looked it up and I took a screen grab of him. And I'm like, this guy's like the stupid, fattest, googly eyed. Like, I don't know what it was about him that just freaked me out. But as a kid, like, it was just, I mean, you watch Scooby-Doo, they had much more scarier monster of the week. But
Wow.
for whatever reason, this fat guy in glasses just kind of like he was coming to get me.
Yeah.
That's my TMI for this week.
Aww.
But as an adult, the baby in Toy Story 3, the baby doll, freaked me the hell out.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I am speechless. Could that be the first time Josie and the Pussycats in outer space traumatized a child? Could you be the only case?
Probably. I had a Josie and the Pussycat t-shirt years ago, and my landlord used to just give me crap. And I'm like, it's classic. He goes, yeah, that's the problem. Listen, I grew up when I grew up. I can't tell you. You know, these kids, when I was doing research for this, my kids are older, but the number one traumatic cartoon that kept coming up, and it had to be like, newer people in their 20s or whatever. Are you familiar with Courage the Cowardly Dog? Have you ever seen? No, not even. So. Okay,
no.
That was like early Nickelodeon, I think, or whatever. And there was this one episode. It was a frenetic cartoon. It wasn't the greatest, but there was this episode where there was a mummy, and somehow like he was a CG mummy where everything else was kind of just straight up 2D animated, and he was a return the slab, and he was after this dog through the entire episode. He wanted the slab returned to him. And that seems to be the most traumatic thing for any kid that grew up watching this show in the last 20 years.
Let's show him Tourist Trap. Come on.
It came up repeatedly.
I know, my son is 13, and I think that the thing that I remember upsetting him the most when he was a kid was if we watched any version of Christmas Carol, even the really? Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Whenever Marley appeared in the door knocker, he would close his eyes. Like the Ghost of Christmas Future didn't bother him, which you would think would be a more obvious like trauma, but like the sight of Marley's mouth opening wide in the door knocker.
It's amazing as a kid, like the stupid things that just set you off, that are just unsettling to you. But my daughter used to run upstairs. If you ever watch The Iron Giant, when Hogarth first goes into the power plant and the switch is turned off, and the Iron Giant shows up in a shadow with just his eyes glowing. My daughter used to run up to the top of the stairs and just sit, just during that one scene. And then once he comes out, she would come back down. And it's just, but again, that's almost the same as like the Abominable Snowman. You just,
you never know what's going to set a kid off. It's really personal for the kid,
Yeah.
Ace Ventura, Nature Calls came on TV. I'm like, oh, he might like this. It's a goofy, stupid movie, right?
Stupid.
So I put it on, and the very beginning is a spoof of the Stallone movie Cliffhanger, where Ace Ventura is he's on a cliff, and he loses a raccoon, and that like sets him off. He has to go to a monastery to study because he's so traumatized by losing his raccoon. And it's such a over-the-top, stupid scene. My son started to cry. Is the raccoon dead? Is the raccoon dead?
It was a stunt raccoon.
I
Don't worry,
felt guilty.
son.
It was like,
it was
like I felt the
Dad.
same. I remember being at Disney World and riding the Pirates of the Caribbean, and there was a couple with a young daughter sitting in front of us, and the daughter starts to cry, and the wife says to the husband, "I thought you said this wasn't scary. It's not." And then she goes, "Jerk."
Oh no!
Dad sat in his own boat for the rest of that trip.
So I think with that, maybe we can put this one to rest.
Yes, I'm traumatized.
So what are we doing next week, Jeff?
Christina
is not going to be with us for the first
like the
time,
mice
and
are
I don't know
gonna play.
how long. Now, but this is actually an opportunity to talk up her appearance. She is going to be at the C2E2 in Chicago. So do we have any more details around that?
Yeah, I'll be appearing on Saturday and on Sunday. On Saturday, I'm on a panel. I've forgotten the exact time. I think it's at 12 or 12:30. It's about midday. And the name of the panel is Writers on the
Storm.
Best Advice I Ever Got, I think is the name of the panel. The Terry Brooks is also going to be on my panel, along with a bunch of other writers. So if you're a fantasy fan, if you're a fan of the genre books, Terry Brooks will be there. And,
do you have to limit your answer to that question to writing, or can it be like the best pizza advice I've ever gotten, or something to that effect?
That could be a very controversial question in Chicago.
Yes.
Start talking about pizza.
I'm sure.
New York.
And then on Sunday, I'm on a contemporary horror writers panel with Joe Hill, Josh Mallerman, and Daniel Krauss. And that is later in the afternoon. If you guys are going to go into C2E2, please come and see me. The panel information will be in the C2E2 guide, and there will be signing after each panel.
And we should also point out that new anthology, Cursed, is going to be released very soon. Is it not, in March?
Yeah, March 3rd. So yeah, I'm just a part of the anthology. There's like 20
along
odd
with
other writers.
the mentioned Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman, M.R. Carey, who wrote The Girl with All the Gifts, if you're familiar with that book. If you're not familiar with that book, I recommend that you go out and buy it right now. It is one of the best books I've ever read, bar none.
Wow.
Love The Girl with All the Gifts. Also Charlie Jane Anders, Tim Levin, Christopher Golden, Jane Yolen, like a ton of amazing writers have contributed to this anthology.
You see what a big deal she is? And not only is she going to be at C2E2, but she's also going to be leaving us for a couple of weeks, but you won't know that because we have a 5-bucket episode coming up that we've recorded special just for you already, a little peek behind the curtain. But she's also going on an international tour.
Makes you wonder why she's slumming it with us.
Don't say anything, Jeff. Don't say anything.
Oh, sorry. Make her feel special. Sorry.
Yes, I'm going to be on tour in Australia. I'll be appearing at the Supernova convention in Melbourne the weekend of March 6th. And then I'll be doing some bookstore appearances in Sydney and around Sydney. And then I'll be at Supernova again the following weekend in the Gold Coast. So, yes, I'll be in Australia for 2 weeks.
Good day.
You guys will be all by yourselves. Don't misbehave.
Oh, well.
If you happen to be...
We're immediately running back to the Saturday morning cartoons.
If you happen to be a TMI listener in any of those areas, please show up and let Christina know.
Not only that, I think she's going to have some branded merchandise to hand.
That's right, I will. I'm going to have some super cool TMI stickers and bookmarks. So if you want some swag, you got to come and see me.
A bookmark with a signed book? Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to sound like a letdown after all that.
I know, right?
Jeff and I are covering next week Teen Titans Go versus Teen Titans. Now, this is a sequel.
So what's the plot?
Such a great time. We actually had a really good time covering Teen Titans Go to the movies.
Yes.
So this has been in the works since then, and it looks very promising. So, so we're going to be covering that next week, along with Thundercats Roar, which kind of seems like a Teen Titans Go, kind of a more kid-friendly version of Thundercats.
Yeah, my diehard Thundercat friends are already crying about it.
Really?
So,
but you have not seen it as of yet, correct?
I have not. All right. Well, are we reviewing multiple episodes?
Well, usually these things are only like 20 minutes long, so I would say 2 or 3, whatever they have available on demand so far.
Yep.
We can do.
Yep. And check it out. Now, are we also going to get a super secret guest host next week?
Oh, if I can urge him into the room, yes, and have him say something more than monosyllabic answers to my questions.
Listen, we can get a one-word review for Sonic the Hedgehog.
We'll see if we can get Harrison in next week to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. Yes.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Cool. Well, thanks again for listening.
Yeah. Have a good time, always. Christina. Don't miss us too much.
I know, right?
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
Have a good day, eh?
Bye.
See you.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
No!
Wow.